This video is about SSX On Tour and why it rocks. Play the music. SSX On Tour is a snowboarding and skiing game for the GameCube, Xbox, PSP and PS2, developed by EA Sports. I own the PS2 version, but I will be playing the GameCube version because you can play as Mario in it. This is real. Funnily enough, this is not the only EA Sports big game that features Mario and company. There's a good chance you've seen one of these clips of NBA Street 3, another game that features Mario characters f***ing balling. Now, why can you play as Mario, Luigi and Peach in these games? As it turns out, EA and Nintendo had made a deal that would allow them to put these characters in their games released on Nintendo systems. Now, the inclusion of these characters in SSX On Tour is, I think, especially weird when you take into account that it includes mild violence, allowing you to do this. Now, I'm pretty sure this is the only official Nintendo seal of approval game that has Mario committing real-looking acts of violence to real-looking people. I could be wrong, but I have no idea how to research this any further. When you think about it, SSX On Tour walked so Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Winter Games could run. Bro, SSX On Tour walked so Fortnite could run. Fortnite is genuinely crazy to me, by the way. Here's a guy that's supposedly above guns. Using a gun. Okay, so I know I keep going off on unrelated rants like this, so I'll stop myself here and confine myself to a few key factors contributing to this game's greatness. Beginning with SSX On Tour's soundtrack consists solely of licensed music, spanning a bunch of different genres. It has heavy metal rock, pop punk, hip hop, dance punk, trip hop, garage rock, alternative rock, indie rock, punk rock, hard rock, noise rock, and stoner rock. Hey, why are we... This has nothing to do with me, I swear. I played this game a bunch when I was young, and I think it really connected with me because I loved rock music. It not only introduced me to some cool rock music I hadn't heard before, but also to bands making cool music in a bunch of genres that were entirely new to me at the time. Kind of funny how much my music taste has been influenced by video game OSTs over the years. My ass found out about Bossa Nova through the Blob. Now let's say you despise trip hop. Well, then there's a mixtape function where you can kind of pick and choose what songs you want to hear. Mixtapes, of course, fitting in super well with the game's overall vibe. The cool thing about the in-game music in SSX On Tour is that it's adaptive. Instead of using the classic method of whatever track currently playing having different arrangements which fade in and out depending on the situation though, SSX On Tour achieves adaptive music using basically one effect: a filter. I don't want this video to become riddled with ads, so instead of using the in-game music as an example, I recreated what this would look like using some classic Daisuke Ishiwatari bangers from the Guilty Gear OST. In the game, there's most likely some kind of system that tracks stats like acceleration and elevation. These stats are fed to the filter, which is then applied to the current track playing to reflect the player's gameplay. A subtle example would be how the game slowly cuts off the lower frequencies until you reach a certain speed threshold. A more drastic and my personal favorite example would be how the game cuts off a huge portion of the low end whenever you do a big jump, and then slowly brings it back until you hit the ground, where it brings back the last remaining chunk. Pure ecstasy. My dream is for this game to somehow get a PC port that would allow you to import your own songs so you could do stuff like this. This game to me screams late 90s, early 2000s aesthetically. This makes sense considering the game's release date and the sort of vibe it's going for. Examples of this can be found throughout the game. For starters, let's look at what the main characters are wearing. Here we can find some classic 2000 fits like the new metal guy fit, the strange pretty much random combination of clothing fit, skatewear, guy who loves the Matrix a lot, fit. Billy Ray Cyrus. Vivienne Westwood fit, and that shit Dutch royalty wears when they go skiing. What I believe to be the most memorable and standout aspect of this game's look is the UI. I am a huge fan of this game's UI. For me, it's definitely up there with the specific art style this game uses for its menus and UI symbols, from what I can gather, doesn't have a specific name or point of origin, but falls under the ever-evolving art of graffiti. This being a recent and very accessible version of it, since you only need a notebook, a pen or pencil, and markers. A popular symbol stemming from the specific aesthetic being the cool S, or the universal S, which I'm bringing up because the S's in the logo bear a striking resemblance to it. Since it's such a universal sort of style, I find it hard to point out where it originated, but during my research I did stumble upon it again. Specifically when I was looking into Vivienne Westwood. Images of her clothing lines and installations started popping up, showcasing a very similar looking art style. So I can at least say that it probably started popping up around the late 80s, early 90s. Another highlight of the UI are the animations present in the menus, loading screens, and the transitions between them. These animations usually consist of 2 to 3 frames animations paired with some good old motion tweening or keyframing for those who don't know what macro media flash is. Dude, the version I use is almost 20 years old at this point. I'd say the animations really do give that early internet indie animation vibe, where Flash was incredibly prevalent, but maybe that's a little bit of a stretch. What I can say is that I think it's fun. There's always something going on without getting distracting. Pretty much every screen has some unique art and animations, usually in reference to whatever purpose the specific screen has. I also really like the font choices made. Look how f***ing sick my username looks here. Maybe I should start like a garage rock band. The UI during gameplay is quite simple but captures the same energy. I feel like the UI can be more minimalistic because the level design already does a great job communicating where you need to go and what you can do. I mean, I know it's not rocket science, you start from a higher point and go down until you can't go any further, but SSX On Tour has a bunch of alternate official routes and some opportunities to go off-piste. The main routes and the jump opportunities use the gravity style present in the UI to indicate where to go, and the off-piste stuff can be found by following these signs on the course. The signs are mostly used for shortcuts though. You can pretty much go off-piste whenever you want, just gotta get past these fences, which, in case you're wondering, you can grind on. Oh, and since I'm playing the GameCube version of the game, a whole section of the map has been Nintendo-fied. This is still so surreal to me. Yes, sound design has its own chapter. Why? Well, because I'm a nerd when it comes to this stuff, and it's f***ing amazing. I swear to God, the sounds that play when you do all the autosave stuff when you open the game are etched into my memory. There's something so visceral about these sounds. They really give precisely the amount of punch you would expect from a game that has an art style like this. I also like how the sounds seem to come from the media the games take from, be it guitar feedback and distortion, sounds from old drum computers and samplers, or the tearing and scratching of paper. As much as I like this game's UI visually, I think the audio plays an equal part in making it great. Another detail I quite like is how the game plays crowd noises and instrument noise during the loading screens. Really sells this whole, this is not just a sports thing, but also a performance aspect of the game, which gets established during the opening of the game, by the way. I love this cutscene. Now, when it comes to the sound design during gameplay, I want to give huge credit to the sound designers. Not only does it sound incredibly real, but it's also just exaggerated enough for it to sound like you're some unholy abomination created for the sole purpose of tearing up the course. I swear to God, this could get like a more billion upvotes and a dozen of big Chungus awards and r/oddly satisfying. I've never actually been skiing or snowboarding in my life before, so I couldn't tell you how similar the game feel is to actual skiing or snowboarding. But if it's anything close to what this guy makes it out to be, then I'd say it's pretty close to the real deal. SSX On Tour's gameplay emphasizes verticality and momentum/flow. This becomes clear when you try to play the game in silly and stupid ways. I did 2 runs where I gave myself some arbitrary rules going into them to really underline these aspects. During run 1, I attempted to keep my character on the snow for as long as I possibly could. So I guess this would be the minimal airtime no jumps run. Before long, I noticed that it was kind of tough to stay grounded for any longer than 10 seconds. Partially because you are pretty much forced to do big jumps every once in a while, but also because your player character just kind of tends to do little hops that you can then use to get some easy meter. We will get to the meter by doing a little twirl. This run made it clear that the game wants you to gain height, do tricks, land, gain height, do tricks, land, and so on. It is really fun to try to squeeze as many tricks out of a slope regardless of the amount of height it makes you gain. For run 2, I basically stopped using my controller the moment I started getting some downward speed. Back when I first played the game, me and my siblings would try to see who could get the furthest, and like we did back then, I now once again found that you can make it incredibly far, seemingly with no issue at all. This, to me at least, highlights the game's sense of momentum/flow. It's pretty easy to gain speed, and though the game isn't without its obstacles, they hardly ever get in your way enough to completely keep you from maintaining a good run. What also helps is that it really does feel like you're able to do tricks of anything you want. Anything that's covered in snow being your oyster and your snowboard, or skis being your oyster. Who the f wrote this line? Again, I know this kind of stuff is par for the course for games like this, but if it's good, it's good, and it's good, man. SSX On Tour feels really good to play. The controls feel fast and responsive without ever becoming too fast, making it so that it feels like you're always in control. Now, most of my footage so far has come from the free ride mode, but this game also has a campaign mode, which is aptly called the Tour. You know, it's in the game. As a kid, I almost exclusively played free ride mode, mostly because the game is, again, fun to control. For this video, I figured I'd finally give the campaign a proper shot, and it's honestly pretty fun. You basically play 2 kinds of competitions, events and shreds. Shreds being underground races and challenges meant to build a name for yourself, and events being the official, cringe, government-sanctioned events which affect your global ranking. During the competitions, you earn money by winning games and picking up money along the way. You can then use this money to buy clothing, new tricks and different snowboards and skis, and upgrade your character. The different pieces of equipment offer different stats, allowing you to get an advantage for all the different types of competitions. An example of this being switching from the skis geared towards doing tricks to skis geared towards going really fast when going from a trick-centered challenge to a race. I didn't get to the point of the campaign where this is vital for securing wins, but I'm assuming it's going to be tough to beat the campaign using only base equipment. The game also has a character customization system, but since it was pretty laggy on GameCube, I didn't mess with it much. What I do know for sure is that it passes the "can I make my character look silly" test. Another cool thing in the game are monster tricks. You can only perform them once you build up enough meter. Like I mentioned before? Either by collecting a boost token or by doing tricks, where getting juicy combos increases the rate at which you fill up the meter. A monster trick is achieved by moving your analog stick in a specific manner when in midair, kind of like in a fighting game. There's quite a few you can actually perform depending on what you input, but like with fighting games, I have trouble remembering them all without some kind of dust loop type resource. So instead I just flick the stick around, hope for the best, and succeed around 90% of the time. Kind of like with fighting games for me. When you're not doing monster tricks, you can use your meter to boost, which is especially useful during the campaign's races. I think the way this game handles the meter is really cool because it both rewards you for doing tricks and incentivizes you to do them. To summarize, the gameplay is good. I really enjoy SSX On Tour. It's a satisfying game to play with a really cool audio-visual identity. You may have noticed that I didn't really touch on the fact that SSX is a series of games, and that's because SSX On Tour is the only SSX game I've ever really played. And to do the other games justice, I'd have to give them a good try. So yeah, no tier list. I'm not ranking the games unless, I don't know, discounts. I will play the other games though. They look fun, and I've heard good things about them. Who knows? Maybe I'll make a video where I talk about them too. Now, lastly, I didn't really know where to put this. I wanted to show you this. Yeah, it's real. This is real. They are bonus characters. They look so cursed. Anyway, that'll be it.